Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Hey, welcome to Business Continuity Today. This is your host, Todd DeVoe, speaking, and brought to you by Titan HST. And today we're going to talk about selling business continuity to the C-suite or to your CEO. A good friend of mine, Brian Colburn, he's always telling me that everything that we do in life has to be about selling. What he means by that is not that you have to be selling items, but at least selling programs, selling ideas, and convincing people that what we're doing is the right thing. So business continuity, if you're like many organizations, you have an inadequate business continuity plan, or at least in the program. And your CEO might not even know or understand how inadequate it really is. And this leaves your organization vulnerable to risks and loss of revenue, penalties and fines, and not to mention potential for negative impact on the institution's reputation. Today, if you're seeing a lot of colleges and universities out there that did not have a solid business continuity plan going forward, and when this crisis hit with COVID, they are failing their students and failing their staff and faculty, and so their reputation has really failed. So I love this quote. "I'm hitting my head against the walls, but the walls are giving away." Gustav Mahler. And so the idea here is that, we're going to run against walls all the time, right? Whether people are saying no to you, but for the programs, they don't have money. This is a cost center. This is one of the things that we can cut when we're looking at budgets of cutting that cost center, things like this. But understanding that business continuity can be sold to your C-suite, right, as not a cost center, but as a center that will eventually make money when crisis occurs. And it's not a matter if a crisis will occur. It's going to be a matter of when. I mean, no matter where you live here in the United States and Canada and Mexico, we have earthquake threats, we have weather threats, we have fire threats here, things like this, which are going to impact your business. And what will your business do when it closes down due to that threat? Do you have a plan to keep it going? Do you have the ability to work from home? What are these things that you can do so that your business can continue to serve the customers? And in cases of government and schools, the citizens and your students, right? And I think that's at the end of the day, if we talk about the idea of selling business continuity to the C-suite, right? It's really about being able to have them understand that it's not just a plan that you're going to write. And I've said this before, right? So I'm going to feel like I'm harping on this, but it's very important, right? It's that you go out there and say, look, this right here is going to keep us operational during a time of crisis when things fail, and things will fail, right? Multiple ideas of this. So let's talk about a couple of things that challenge organizations like yours that believe they have comprehensive business continuity plans when in fact the programs are completely incomplete, right? So have they developed a complete recovery process to ensure that they'll be able to move forward during an event? Most of the time when we think about recovery, right, it's about turning, maybe getting a mop and bucket out and mopping the floors back up. But what happens if you have to move that business, the physical location of the business from one location to another? Do you have a plan specifically that laid out that? And then pre-configuring and validating that plan, right? So if you have other contracts in place to be able to move, right, can you move in there seamlessly, right? Do you have contracts, say with a WeWorks, for instance, to go in and say, hey, if this building is down, can you move over there pretty quickly in a seamlessly manner, right? And then the other side of it too is your IT stuff, right? And I'm not an IT guy by any means, right? But I understand the importance of talking to your IT team, and can they move things over to the new location seamlessly? Whether it's your information in the cloud, or is everything, where are your servers located for your business, right? Are they on site or off site? We've had to deal with this a lot in the higher education on where does that live, right? And then having your business continuity plan can negatively impact your organization. I'm heading to things like interrupted services, right? So, for instance, during Hurricane Dorian in 2019, data centers throughout the Southwest United States and Canada experienced interruptions due to flooding. What is your backup based on that, right? Loss in sales and revenue. Now, on the loss in revenue, we're seeing this in institutions of higher education, right? Students do not want to, they're fearful for going into the COVID areas, for one thing. Are they comfortable taking online education? Have we trained them to be able to take online education? Have we trained our staff and faculty to be able to produce quality online education programs? Right. And so again, then you're starting to see some other costs associated with it, with the institution's credibility when it comes to being able to continue to give quality education at this point. So that is like one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with at this point is how do we deal with loss of reputation due to bad press? And we're seeing this across. I can name a few schools right now, like Notre Dame, for instance. They had some issues specifically with COVID rebounding there, but what was their plan and how did it look? And so what were they doing to fight this off? And I think they did a pretty decent job as far as being able to tell everybody exactly what was going on. So how do we get our C-suite to really get involved in the idea of the disaster recovery business continuity planning? And I think I don't say it's simple, but it's not as hard as you think. You have to show value, right? You have to show value and what this business continuity plan is going to do for the organization. And what I mean by that is just lay out all these areas that have risk and vulnerability, and you're going to show how the business continuity plan will help mitigate those things. Because I think most people in general want to be able to mitigate risks. And what I mean by this is that if I walked over to you today and said, "Hey, for this little bit of money here," almost like your insurance, right? That's basically what it is. For this little bit amount of money here, if something happens, you're going to be able to stay whole, or at least not fail as bad as you could. So that's mitigating that risk. And I think as we show this program as mitigating risks, the dollars and cents portion of the CEO and the C-suite is going to understand this. Now, the other part of that is involving every level of leadership in the planning process. So a lot of times what happens is you get hired on as a business continuity emergency manager for an organization. They stick you into an office. They tell you to write a plan. You sit there all day long and you write a plan, and then you get this document and you submit it to them, and they go, "Oh, this is great," or whatever. It checks these boxes off that we need to do for legalities and also for just for the idea of having a plan, right? If somebody asks that question, right? The investors or whatnot, but they don't live that plan, and so bringing each person, each or part of the organization into the planning process where they have a say, a feel, an ownership into what that plan really is, and then you can, then it's not just your plan; it's the organization's plan. C-suite executives understand the concept of risk, are comfortable thinking in the terms of risk and mitigation. So talk about the risk and about losing thousands of hundreds of dollars, or possibly customers, or in a case of higher education, our students not coming back. And they will understand those numbers easily. So then you want to prioritize the sections of the plan that make more sense specifically for the organization. So when you sit down and you say, okay, and I'm not going to give you exactly how this is going to work because it's different for each organization. But let's say online education is a priority for your organization, right? Rank them and work on those higher priority, the ones that are going to make the biggest impact first on the organization, and show that how that really impacts it. And then as you go down the line of things that are less priority, you're still going to be able to get those into your plan at all. The idea, too, of having a quality business continuity plan, you explain to them it's going to create a competitive advantage. So the customer or the student or the faculty, a staff member of your school experiencing frustration can easily move on, right, and go to another business. If you say you have a quality plan, you're going to be able to keep your customers and your students in your organization. We talked about this before, but I think this is also another thing that's important, is the understanding of the supply chain demands. We all have witnessed supply chain issues here during the COVID crisis, right? And what is the number one supply that we had an issue with? Toilet paper, oddly enough. And so let's use that as an example. If you wouldn't have thought of toilet paper being a problem and you didn't have stocks of toilet paper, you could come into a point to where you were in trouble. You didn't have any toilet paper for your home, right? So the idea is now we have a visual example that we can use about supply chain issues and having enough supplies on hand. So meeting those supply chain demands and using that new example that we have of toilet paper kind of visualizes, and everybody has a good understanding of what that looks like. It's not a abstract idea that's out in the ether somewhere. Then you're also meeting regulatory compliance and requirements, all right? Especially in your higher education organizations where you have various different requirements, legal requirements that you have to make, and having these plans in place will meet that. And again, I don't want to make it sound like we're just doing this checkbox, because you do want to check that box, right? Because it's important for your legal aspects of things. But you also want to make that plan part of your living organization. And then also you're meeting fiduciary duties. And this is really important to the C-suite as far as when it looks at the investors and things like this. Meeting those fiduciary duties is very important. And so explaining how your business continuity plan fits into that aspect of it. And then you're shifting the concept of being a cost center to a money saving center. And so it ends up paying for itself. And you want to point your C-suite and your management team to specific solutions. Don't come in there with a lot of questions necessarily, right? Come in there with solutions. And if the C-suite has additional questions, make sure you're really well educated in this aspect so you can answer them. Or if you can't answer them, make sure you understand how to do the research for them and give them the confidence that you know how to find the information, even if you do not have it on your hands. Other thing too is you have to understand what the new regulations are that are coming forward. So, for instance, in California, there's a new bill that has just been signed by the governor, which requires reporting of the COVID to the health department and also tracking that, right? And how does that look like for you? So, what software are you using to track that COVID cases that are going through your organization? And even if you don't have one right now, you have to have that plan in place. How do you communicate that COVID to the COVID outbreak, if you will? I hate using that term, but that's the term that they're using in the law, to the rest of your staff and students and faculty or workers or clients or customers that come in. How is that looking, and how do you do this? And you have to have that plan set up, because if you don't have that plan, again, now you have fines that come up behind of up to $25,000 in California per violation, by the way, if you don't have that in place. So what does your plan look like? And again, that becomes a cost savings or a risk mitigation process that you're doing. And that's how you tell your C-suite that your program is important. So anyway, as we're going through this, right, you want to be able to lower the cost of doing business, and you want to be able to enhance reliability, right? And I think that's the other thing too, is that there's always these cost centers associated with not doing something, with the risks, right? And so by, again, almost like insurance, by showing that you're looking at the risks to be able to reduce the impact of the risk is actually lowering the cost of doing business, right? And so again, instead of becoming a cost center, you become a money saving center by lowering the risk, by lowering that money that's going out. And I think that's very, very important. So as we close up here, I just want to kind of go in here. So let's follow the strategies that are outlined that we talked today. If you have any other more, speaking great English today, if you have more questions or any questions for that matter, please feel free to reach out to me here. It's Todd or TDeVoe at titanhst.com. I see we have a few comments. And we can get to those a little bit later. And thank you so much for your time today. And stay safe, stay hydrated.